right.
And he'll go through the disclaimers, then I'll introduce you.
All right.
Okay, got it.
The views expressed on Talk Real Solutions, hosted by Tyrone Thompson at talkrealsolutions.com, are the views of Tyrone Thompson and do not reflect the views of talkrealsolutions.com, YouTube, or etc. The content here belongs to Talk Real Solutions and its many contributors. Views and opinions expressed by all contributors belong to them and not talkrealsolutions.com or Tyrone Thompson, the host, or etc. All data and information provided on the site is for informational purposes only. Talk Real Solutions makes no representations as to accuracy, completeness, correctness, suitability, or validity of any information on this site and will not be liable for any errors, omissions, or delays in this information or any losses, injuries, or damages arising from its display or use. All information is provided on an as-is basis.
Yes. Welcome all to Talk Real Solutions. I am your host tonight, Sister Nobody. The number to call in is 717-908-1834. The code is 917324. Press star 61 to get your lines open. Tonight we have author and founder of Think Outside the Cell, Joseph Robinson. He will discuss his new book, The New SSI Method, and I done forgot what the title of the show is, but we do have a title of the show. Welcome, Joseph Robinson. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming back and visiting us, and I see you doing big and new things. So
yeah.
The floor is yours.
Okay. But again, thank you. Over the last several years since we last did this. So a little bit about myself, just to instead of just jumping out there. So again, I'm Joe Robinson. I am, like you said, the author right now of 2 books. I have a third one coming out in June, and then my memoir in December. So I have been very busy. The first book is, Think Outside the Cell, an Entrepreneur's Guide for the Incarcerated and Former Incarcerated. And a person might ask, why, that title? I mean, people like the title, but people might say, why that title, right? And so, that title is because of my own experience with incarceration, right? So I'm not here to talk about what I was in for, how long, all that stuff like that. But as a young person growing up in East New York, Brooklyn, during the crack era, I did get caught up in the legal system. Did, a considerable amount of time, but I like to say that I made the time serve me, right? That I didn't just serve time. And so, that first book came out while I was incarcerated, and that was in 2007. It's hard to believe it. That was 18 years ago I wrote that. But it's still selling. This is a new version of it, and it's intended to not just teach people about entrepreneurship, teach people impacted by the criminal justice system, but other people as well. But it's intended to inspire people, to show that we are more than our past. That's really important, right? Because some people, even if we haven't done time, we are kind of confined mentally and emotionally, and sometimes even behaviorally by our past. So it's intended to inspire people that we're not our past. And then last year, came out with the new SSI method. And that book, I'm really building a movement around it. And what it is the first book is about entrepreneurship and the, some of the mechanics and the processes in terms of entrepreneurship. The new SSI method is based on personal finance, strictly personal finance, meaning investing, saving, spending, that type of stuff. And so the SSI stands for having a spending plan, a savings plan, and an investing plan. Everybody, actually. I think everybody should have, however we generate income, we should be thinking about three different buckets. What part is going to go towards spending, wants, and needs? What is going to go towards savings for emergency or vacations and stuff like that? And what percentage or dollar amount is going to go to investing? It's really that simple. If we could think about how we're going to allocate our money in those three different buckets, and we do it consistently and intentionally, then I think that we can be, better off. And I'll finally just say that I came up with that title because a friend of mine who was like 10 years older than me and did 27 years for a crime he did not commit. One day we were talking, we were in Queens section of New York City some years ago during the pandemic, and he was talking about how he had, not that he didn't want to work, but he was talking about how he had to work because he had done all those years in prison and couldn't contribute to Social Security, right? Where his friend, who's the same age, didn't do time and now was about to retire. And so he had to work. And that really, the light bulb went off for me because a lot of people, whether they did time or not, but especially people who did a lengthy period of time, when they come home from prison, some, not all, but some, want to collect SSI. And so I heard it enough. Not that my friend, he works, but my thinking was that, if a person is able-bodied, that they would do themselves a greater service if they worked, and because they can make more money than SSI. And with the money, they should be, of course, they're going to spend some, but they should be saving and investing others. So they should not be relying on the government, but instead should be relying on themselves and have money work for them instead of working for money. So it's a mouthful, but that's like the story behind those two books.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we implement this in our daily lives?
What
would
basically,
you suggest the stages be?
Okay, well, I think
sorry.
the first. No, that's okay. No, it's a lag, but I get it. No, it's okay. So that's an excellent question because basically, how do we make this practical, right? Not just be some idea, right? Because it's a framework. That's what they call it, right? So again, it's spending, saving, and investing. So the way I break it down is by I'm getting ahead of myself, but the way I break it down is by percentages. So depending on a person's age, I think that it depends on how much they should allocate, right, or set aside for each of those different categories. But before I get to that, the first thing a person needs to do, in my opinion, is to basically come to terms with that they need a better system than what they have. Right? A better way of operating when it comes to money, right? Because if we think everything is fine, then we're not going to change. We need to first realize that, maybe we won't have enough savings or investments and stuff like that for retirement or whatever, and so that we need to do something different. Another thing is, because I'm really big on, it's not just like, where do I put my money? I spoke to a guy the other day. I don't know how many, he did some time in prison. I'm not sure how long, but he said he had $2,000, and he was like, oh, where should I put it? And I was like, first of all, I can't be giving financial advice, right? I'm not licensed to give financial advice, so I'm saying that for this.
Q&A session is over.
Yeah.
Q&A session has started.
Sorry about that. I'm trying to press too much. I'm sorry, Joseph. Hold on one second. Joseph, I'm sorry about that. I'm pressing too much. Too many buttons.
Okay, we good? Are we good?
Yes, we good. We good.
Okay, good. So basically my point is that the psychology is just as, if not as important as where like where you invest or how much you put aside and all that, how you get started. You get started by addressing your mindset, right? It may not be what
Right.
most people think, but it really is about thinking differently about money and seeing money not as just a consumer, but that as an owner, right? And what I mean by that is basically putting money to work, right? We've been taught to go to school, get a job, work, 40 years, retire, and live happily ever after. Usually that's not the way it works. You go to supermarkets, you see people in their 60s and 70s still working. Why is that? You worked all your life. Why are we still working? Right? Why? And I'm not trying to be funny, but like, why are we not vacationing, or why are we not with the grandkids as much, or whatever? Right? Because we have to work because we've been taught to work for money instead of having money work for us. When we invest, I'm not talking about savings. Savings, you make a little bit of interest, but when you invest, right, whether it's in your own business and stocks and bonds or real estate, something like that, then the money works for you. You wake up, and I'm saying from my own experience, right? The market is going up and down, and we could talk about that too. Some people might say, look at all the stuff that's going on. Now's a good time. We could talk about that. But the main thing is that for the most part in the United States, the top 500 companies in America, the S&P 500, you probably heard that as an index, a basket of stocks. They tend to go up over time. So it goes down every now and then, but historically they go up. But it's about the psychology. So I don't know if that answered it, because your question was like, where do you get started? I would say people first need to, read up on personal finance stuff, right? Whether it's books like mine, whether it is YouTube. I watch a lot of YouTube. So become more comfortable with the topic of investing, right?
Hey,
Before
how
you
you
just
doing,
jump
brother?
in.
Hey, I
Hello?
got a
I'm
caller on
jumping
the
in.
line. Caller, can you introduce yourself and state your question?
Hey, hi. I'm Brother Howard. How you guys doing? How you doing, Sister Nobody? How
I'm
you
good.
doing, brother? I don't know your name. Is
I'm
it
good.
Mr. Robinson?
It's Joe. Yes. Yes.
How you doing?
I'm good, Howard.
First of all, I just want to say I don't really have a question, but I do want to say I appreciate you guys coming on and talking about this subject. I think it's a subject that a lot of Black people should learn about early in life. I'm talking maybe freshman year high school, start going through things, learning things about what you're saying. And so I appreciate you coming on to try to teach some of us that may be on the caboose. And that's not a diss to anyone, but everyone doesn't know. And I would just say this. I've only been on the line a little bit, but everything you've said from what I've just heard is spot on, pinpoint. But the only thing I will say this, brother, and I used to say this, I learned about investing when I went into the military, 1996, as far as doing mutual funds. I also used to do day trading a bit for a while, but I stopped doing that because I just didn't have the time. I just didn't have the time. I didn't, that takes a lot of study. I didn't have the time. So I put most of my money in mutual funds and things like that. And I've been doing it since 1998, 7 or 8. And if you want to call up Fidelity and look at my situation, it's one of those things. But what I want you to talk about and tell these people, and what I try to tell youngsters, but they don't listen. I said, man, compound interest is the greatest thing
It is.
I've ever experienced in life, bro.
It is.
If you could speak on that, that would be my question. Could you speak on compound interest?
Interest. Okay, yeah, sure. But thanks
And
for the
I'll go
question.
on.
Thanks for the comment. Like I said, Howard, is not so much a question, but more of a comment. So yeah, like I said, the beauty of investing, right? There are risks. Let me say that there are always risks, right? Because you're investing, the idea of investing is that you're investing in the future. People need to be clear about that, right? Doesn't matter how much a company made yesterday or today or whatever. I mean, you can look for patterns and stuff, but you want to think 3 years out, 5 years, 10 years, right? So you're thinking about a company that has products and services, real simple, that and they do well by their customers. I think that's important, right? The type of company you invest in, that you think that they will be profitable and continue to be profitable. That's why people invest. Let's just get that out the way. But the question of compound interest, and the beauty of investing is that, uh, that is the heart of when I say making your money work for you. If you have $1,000 and you put it in the bank right now, most banks you might get 1%, right? You might get 1%. So 1% of $1,000, meaning annually, right? Let's just say 1%, right? So you multiply 1,000 by 1%, and you get $10. So the entire year, your money, you worked, bust your behind, and you put $1,000 in the bank, and you get $10. $10. That's 1%, right? So now let's look at investing. Investing, on the other hand, right? There's no guarantees, but I will say this: last year, right? You can't go by history. They'll say that, but I invest with Fidelity as well, right? I have a Roth IRA with Fidelity, and I have a regular brokerage account, and then I have a Roth 401k. So I have 3 accounts right now, right? But anyway, so with the Fidelity, for example, in terms of compound interest, if you have $1,000 in last year, uh, the S&P 500 made about 23%, not one, not two, not five, 23% in one year. And I was down right now because of all this crazy stuff going on with these tariff wars and all that stuff like that. I think over time it will straighten out, not because I'm just going to say this, not because I believe in the person in the White House, but I think that other factors will bring back some sense of normalcy. I'll just say that, right? So if, let's say, 2 years in a row you made, not that it necessarily happened, but that you made 20%, let's say 20%. So the first year you got $1,000, and then you have the next year, and then you make 20% off your $1,000, you now have $200 extra dollars, right? So you have $1,200. And now, let's say the next year, right? Or even if not the entire year, but throughout the year you make money. But let's say the next year, the market or your investment, whatever, if it's an individual stock, makes another 20%. Now, instead of having $200, the first year you got $200, right, on your $1,000. Now, compound interest means interest earned on top of interest already earned. So you already earned the $200 on the first 1,000. Now you have 1,200. So now your 20% your 1,200 is being multiplied by 20%. So you're not getting $200, you might get $240 or whatever the case may be. I didn't do the math, but let's say about 240, right? So now you have 1440 instead of 1,400. It may seem like nothing. The power of compound interest is over time. Like after 10 years, and 10 years, we know as we 10 years flies by. But really, you get started with this, the compound interest works like magic because your money is just growing like a snowball without you doing anything. And if you add money to it while it's growing, in other words, you don't just stop with 1,000, but every now and then you put $100 in, you put $50, you put 1,000. When you get your tax money like that, it grows. I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna be somewhat transparent. My 401k alone, that's a Roth 401k with my employer. I've been there 6 years, no, almost 7 years, right? Started off part-time, now full-time, make good money. I'm in New York City. The last time I checked, right, now I know it's down now because of all this craziness, but I had over $200,000. in 6 years. Over $200,000. That's compound interest. It's not that I make, my millions of dollars. Okay, it's money being compounded by money. Money attracts more money. Right? When you spend it, it's gone. Period. Right? But when you put it to work, it becomes fruitful and multiply, like the Bible said. Not to get religious, but anyway, that's a long version of my definition for compound interest. It's interest on top of interest, and then it just keeps snowballing. Once you get to a certain amount, there are videos on YouTube that says once you get to like $100,000, your money really begins to compound. It just really grows. Those stick something about that reaching that mark, right, is when your money really grows. Because let's just say you got $100,000 and you make 10% in the market, right? You're never gonna make, and I'm saying never. I've never next week I'll be 55. I've never seen in my lifetime, in my entire lifetime, a bank account, a regular bank account, or even a high yield savings account, anything like that, earning 10%. I've never seen it. The closest was when I was in college back in the late 80s, and it was like 8 point something percent. And that's usually when the banks are giving out that type of money, it means the economy is in bad shape. The bank needs money to survive, so they have to charge, depending on the economic climate, they have to charge a certain amount of interest to attract people's money, right? So anyway, I don't want to get too far into it, but the point is that if you made 10% on your money, you had $100,000. That's $10,000. $10,000 that you didn't earn. That it's money that made more money, and that's the name of the game. So anyway, sorry to get too long with it.
Thank you, Joseph. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yep, I hear you.
Oh, all right. Thank you. Any other callers on the line? Let me see.
Okay.
Let's see. You have any other callers
You
on
got
the
the board,
line?
Sister Nobody, right? You got the
Yes,
board?
yes, I do.
Okay, I'd like to ask the brother, what's your qualifications, brother? Your profession, or what's going on? Because I didn't hear the beginning of the show. So
Yeah, well, I work at a law firm. I work at a law firm in Manhattan. So I'm the director of reentry services at a law firm in the financial district. But when I'm not working, right, I have my business, Mindful Money LLC, and I teach personal finance and entrepreneurship, both of which I've been doing since 1995. So that's my credentials. I've been doing it for 30 years. So I've been teaching it to mostly to what we call in New York justice impacted people. So people caught up in the criminal justice system. Teach them about money so they could change their thinking about money, their attitudes, and their behavior around money, and begin to think more like an owner than a consumer, so that they could break that cycle of having to work for money, right? Only work for money and work for the rest of their lives. Instead, I teach them to be, like I said, owners, right, in every sense of the word, through investing in themselves, right, their time and education, and so that's basically my. I don't. That's what I said earlier. As far as like a disclaimer, I don't have a license. You don't need a license these days. See people on YouTube all the time. They're giving some really good advice. I follow quite a few of them. They're not licensed or anything, but they know what they're talking about. And yeah, so that's where I'm at with it.
okay. Yeah, that's all I got, brother. Yeah, you sound real good. Hope some people may be taking notes, and good show, Sister Nobody. I'm gonna sit back and yeah, you are good stuff, brother. I don't have any.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're talking real good. So I'll sit back, Sister Nobody, let someone else call in and ask a question. So I'm just listening, and
Okay.
I'm just listening.
Okay.
And the YouTube is up if anybody is looking at the YouTube. It is up. If YouTube callers want to call on in, call on into the show. Joseph, I have a question. On a daily basis, how many people do you work with as far as getting them to financially save and develop wealth?
Well, yeah, it varies because I do it in several different ways. Like I said, I do work full time, so and I have two interns. That's it. So I don't have a bunch of employees and stuff like that. So I say that to say that so I don't provide like direct services, like in the sense of like coaching or anything like that, right? Like one-on-one. I've done coaching. I can do coaching. It's very time consuming, and so I have to charge for that because it's my time and knowledge, right? And so most people will either buy one of my books through Amazon, right? The new SSI method, or Think Outside the Cell. I also do events. Right, so I do presentations. Like I have one coming up in another week and a half in Brooklyn, and so this is to an organization, the Osborne Association. They work with justice impacted people. So sometimes I do free services. Sometimes I provide workshops and things like that, and then other times they're paid. So, for example, in the South Bronx, I just finished a 6-week course working with teenagers, working with high schoolers. And they paid me for it. I would have done it for free, not for 6 weeks because that's a lot of time. I had to put the curriculum together and all that stuff. But I had a great time working with the young people. And it was twice a week, so 12 sessions. I went to every session, because they depended on me. And so, but they paid me for that. So those are some of the ways that people come in contact with my materials. People can go to, I'll just say this, I know this is early in the show, but people can go to Mindful Money, one word, Mindful Money, LLC, .com, right? And you can see some of my free materials as well. So that's another way that people can get exposed to my philosophy, my thinking about money. What do I mean by that new SSI method? I have people can get the first chapter of my book, both books actually, by going to the website. And there's a way to get the chapter 1 of Think Outside the Cell. And also the new SSI method. All you have to do is provide your email, your name and email address, and you'll get chapter 1, and it'll be as a flip book, right? So, the pages actually turn. You hear it's digital, but the pages actually turn. It's really nice. And there's also a free glossary. So you can get all 3 for free. There's other stuff, but you can get a free glossary because terminology is important, right? Terminology. I work in, like I said, I'm not an attorney, but I work with lawyers. I work at a law firm. I've been there almost 7 years. And with the law, for example, it has its own language. Money has its own language, right? So we need to know, not every single term, but we need to know, for example, the difference between an asset and a liability. We need to know the difference, or not the difference, but what is meant by opportunity cost, right? When you spend your money on one thing, that means you've given it up other things. The same thing with our time. We can't be in 2 places at the same time. So when we're spending our money, spending our time one way with whomever we may be spending time with, or even if we're alone, that means we're giving up other things. So I teach those type of concepts in my workshops and also in the glossary, which is free, like I said, by going to mindfulmoneyllc.com.
All right. And you mentioned the up-and-coming event. Is that free to the public that's in Brooklyn, New York? You want to give the location, or is that by reservation only?
No, it's free, but it's for a specific organization. So it's for their residents, right? It's a transitional housing for justice impacted people. So it's not open to the public. Basically, it's for people who live in this housing complex. And I've worked with them before. They always extend an open door to me, and so yes, I have like some new materials relating to the new SSI method or the SSI method, and so I want to share it with them. And yeah, so it's closed. It's in the Brownsville section of Brooklyn, one of the rougher neighborhoods in Brooklyn. If not the roughest, it's one of the rough. I grew up in East New York, which is also rough. But yeah, so it's, like I said, it's closed out. It's the Osborne Association, though, and it's one of their transitional housing complexes. I've worked with other organizations like the Fortune Society, which is one of the larger organizations in New York City. I have done, it's been a while, but I did a free workshop many years ago at another organization called the Exodus Transitional Community. So I want to reach out to them as well. Those are the three, among the three of the larger reentry organizations in the city. So I want to start there by reaching that population directly. But I will say this. I will be, and I'll keep you abreast of it, Michiko. I will be doing free monthly webinars. So a person could be anywhere. They don't have to be in Brooklyn. They could be in Greensville, Greensboro, whatever, So once a month, the first Saturday of the month, beginning May 3rd, right? So a couple more weeks, I will be doing a free 90-minute web class every month, once a month. Right, so I'll provide links. My stuff will be, be out there on social media, and people can, listen to my presentation. And then towards the end, there's a Q&A session, and we'll do it every month, right? So we can see each other, meaning because it's going to be on Zoom, right? So it's going to be a web class. Okay. So I just want to put that out there. So once a month.
And I know we don't have a lot of time with you because you're a very busy man, and I'm sure you're tired.
I am tired. I just came to eat dinner. I'm just being honest. Yeah, my stepson took me and my wife out because my wife's birthday is Monday, mine is Thursday. So him and his girlfriend took us out for dinner earlier. So yeah, it's been one of those days. But I'm here. I'm enjoying it. This is good.
Good. Glad to hear that. Glad to hear the family time. Family time is just as important. Family and health is just as important.
That's right.
When you say reentry, can you explain that to the audience? What do you mean when you say you're teaching financial freedom to those reentering? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so, that's a good question. First, I use the word reentry, and I use it loosely, and by that I mean this. When I talk about reentry, I always make the distinction between reentry and reintegration. Reentry, to me, is merely someone being released from prison or jail, some carceral situation, right? So anybody could reenter, meaning not, when I say anyone, meaning most days of the year, somewhere in the country, people are being released from jail or prison every day, just about, except the weekends, right? But 5 days a week, all year round, people are being released. So a lot of people reentering. Reentering is one thing. Reintegration is another. So I did use the word reentry, but the more appropriate term or focus should be on reintegration. And by that, I mean, how do we integrate, right? Because reentering, it means just you're returning, right? You're returning. In New York, some people use the word returning citizen, right? Maybe other places too, but New York, they use the term instead of saying formerly convicted, ex-convict. We don't use those terms in New York. You don't hear it too much, right? People have realized that some language is harmful. Some language is harmful, all right? It does more damage than others. People are human beings who did some bad things, right? But they're not the sum total of those bad things. They are more than that. Clearly, I am more than that. I did a whole bunch of time, but yeah, I'm writing books. I have a business. I have a wife. I live in. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, not saying to minimize anything, but I am more than the crime, right? People are more than the crime. So again, reentering is coming back to your community or some community. Reintegration is being integrated or interwoven, so to speak, into the fabric of society, meaning having a job, having, some decent housing, having, some people is going back to school, getting a trade. So you're integrated, especially in the financial aspect. My focus is largely on the financial aspect because a lot of people who did time, especially did a lot of time, but even a few years, they never had bank accounts. They didn't have credit cards, right? So they used to go on to check cashing and stuff like that, paying all these extra fees. They don't have credit, right? Not saying everybody, but a lot of people, they don't have credit and think that it's fine not to have credit. And they have a term called credit invisibility. You have no credit, even though you could be good in paying back your bills to your friend or this, or just paying your bills in general. But if you don't have a credit history, you are invisible. It's like you don't even exist. If you try to get a loan, a legal, legit loan, if you try to get an apartment, let alone try to get a home or something like that, or a car, you have no credit history. So I talk about credit. So reintegration for me through a financial lens is helping people get integrated within the banking systems, the credit systems, things like that. So that's how I see it, a little bit more granularly, more detailed, in terms of reintegration. Right, we want people to feel like they are a part of society, not like they're on the outside, marginalized by society. That's one of the things that makes people reoffend, to commit more crimes. They never feel like they was accepted. Right, it's no excuse because nobody should be committing crimes. But when a person is in prison and they're told they're nothing, because that's the message that's kind of communicated by the system, right? They told that for years or decades, and then they come home. There are so many obstacles. I just talked to a woman. Let me just say this. This is a true story because I deal with this stuff all the time. I just talked with a woman,
Okay.
a client of ours. Yeah, I just talked with a client of ours for about almost an hour earlier today. And she was explaining to me how she's been on for 2 years, and because of her crime, she's tried everything. She's got a master's degree. No, I think a bachelor. I take that back. I don't think she has a master's, but I think she has a bachelor's degree that she earned while inside. She's changed her life. I don't know the facts of her case. I don't really care, to be honest, right? Because I'm there, she's a client, so I'm not there to be judging her, but instead to help her get reintegrated, right? And not just reentered. She's reentered 2 years ago, but she still is having problems with a job and with housing and all these other things because of her criminal history. So my point is, this is a very real situation, and my goal is to help people navigate a couple of areas of their lives, but one being the financial area, right? For them to be smart about it and not live in the margins for the rest of their lives.
So is this your way of giving back to the community, or I hear you're passionate.
Yeah.
You're passionate about it.
Yeah,
What
I
made
would
you
say
look-
this.
Okay,
Mhm.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you, like, what influenced your purpose? Let me say that.
Yeah. No, it's a very good question. So, yes, it is a way of giving back. Now, I'm not doing it all for free, right? I do a lot of it for free, to be honest, right? And I enjoy doing it. But like I said, occasionally I do get paid for speaking engagements. I intend to do more. Uh, and I do have products, like I said, books and downloadable products. I have merch as well. People can go to shop.thinkoutsidethecell.com and, have a storefront. People can buy stuff. But to keep the movement going, and I do see it as a movement because people who do time, that experience is very unique. It's very unique. It's like people going into the military. Very similar, very unique, right? If you haven't experienced that, then you don't know what it's like. You might have an idea. Same thing like with prison. But to answer your question, what motivated me is my own experience. Growing up, I mean, we grew up together, meaning partly, right? Growing up in Brooklyn, in East New York and Brownsville, those type of neighborhoods in the 80s with the crack era and all that, getting caught up in the system, and then only to learn and making fast money as a teen and early 20s, and then getting caught up in the system, and then having the time to myself to really reflect on how I kept getting in trouble as a young person. And what I saw, one of the things was my reaction to poverty. Because I was like, what's causing me to keep doing, stupid stuff and get caught up? My reaction to poverty was, I got to make this money, especially this was a crack era. It was, this is the Reaganomics and all this other stuff. I mean, I didn't understand all that was going on at the time because I was a teenager, but when I had the time inside in prison to really reflect on it, to read about it, to really put things in context, I was like, oh, wow, I played myself. Like I didn't know, but I played myself, not only causing harm in the community, but also wasting, wasting my life, basically, with that stuff. And so I realized in the the early 90s, in 94, 93, 94 is when I started reading up about, mostly 94, started reading up about personal finance and entrepreneurship. I would go to the library while I was in prison because I was like, I have to find a better way to make money, right? A smarter way. And so I started reading those books, took to them, and then in 1995 started teaching it because I've always been a book person, right? Like a bibliophile in some ways. I love reading. I love books to this day, right? And so I took to those type of books, started teaching it, and never turned back. And it does feel like giving back. I feel like I can't undo the crime or other bad things, whatever that I've done in my life. None of us can undo it. But what I can do is focus on today and make as positive an impact as I can. And I have been, and I will continue to for the rest of my life, do this type of work. People have started businesses because of my books. People have invested and changed the trajectory of some of their lives. I want to reach more people. I want to have more impact, and it feels good to know that I'm intentionally, doing things to have a positive impact, as opposed to when I was young, much younger, not intentionally trying to hurt people, but trying to make a living, to eke out some type of an existence. But now, I have a much more purposeful life, so it feels great.
Okay, call us, Dow Star 61. Joseph is not going to be here all night with us. So Dow Star 61, if you have a question, as you see, he's saying, he's tired. So please dial star 61 if you have a question or would like to make a statement. Joseph, you are always welcome back on Talk Real Solutions as you progress. You are always welcome back. And yes, please send me the link for your web. I can't even get it out. For your Zoom meeting. Yeah. I can't even get it out. But yes, please definitely send me the link, and I will make sure that here on Talk Real Solutions that we are up to date. And anytime you have, because everybody is in different states, so anytime you have a meeting, let's say in South Carolina, hey, let me know, and I'll let everyone know that, hey, you're going to be in this place at this time, for them to come out and sit and speak with you or listen to you speak. You are always welcome, Joseph, here. Anybody have any questions? Dial star 61. Joseph is not going to be here all night.
That's right. This is good, guys. This is good. This is good what you're doing. Yeah.
Yes.
Are we good?
Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions? Dial star 61. So far, no questions. I don't see any questions on the line. So for that, Joseph Robinson is tired, so he's going to go ahead and go to bed. He done had his family.
Yep.
Oh, Sister Ottawa has a question. Let me open up her line.
Okay.
Sister Ottawa, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I am. Good evening.
evening.
I wanted to ask the brother. Good evening. I didn't catch your name.
Joe Robinson. Yep.
Joe Robinson.
Yes.
My question to you is this. I know you've had a lot of experience from just listening to you on this life journey of yours, but I would like to ask you, do you find that the people that you're dealing with on the financial realm have preconceived notions about money? Like, you know, we pick up these different cliches, like you got to have money to make money, and money is the root to all evil, and different things, you know, different attitudes we have about money. It might even be emotional. You know, we have some emotional ties with it. But could you kind of touch on that and how we can reprogram ourselves about money?
Yeah. No, thank you for that question. That's really a really spot on question, because the truth is that whether a person that is somebody that I regularly work with, like justice impacted people or not, many of us, but definitely that population, no question about it, has some preconceived notions about money. What you describe is a term they call money scripts, right? So just like how you write a movie script, we have mental, all of us, right, have some type of messages about money. Money doesn't grow on trees. I heard that all the time growing up, right? Some people, you know, especially if you're religious, not everyone, but some people, oh, money is the root of all evil. The Bible doesn't say the money. It said the love of money is the root of all evil. You can't put money above God. You can't put money above, especially above God, but also above people. I realize people are valuable. Life is valuable, right? So, but a lot of us have money scripts. We think that some people think that rich people are bad. They must have did something bad to get that money. So if you think like that, if a person thinks like that, whether they did time or not, then unconsciously they are telling themselves that they should remain poor, not become rich. All right, you don't want to be bad. If being rich is bad, then you will unconsciously stay poor. That's the danger of having those preconceived notions that you talk about, or what I call money scripts, those hidden messages about money that if you talk about it, that's why I like talking about this stuff. It's not just teaching, it's like having conversation, especially for black and brown people, right? We don't talk about, for the most part, around the kitchen table about money, right? And when we do, we talk about how we don't have enough of it, right? How we're struggling. We need to change the narrative to go back to what you're getting at. We need to flip things upside down and just say, instead of I don't have enough money, it's like, how can I be creative, right? Because we all have the gift of creativity. How can I be creative and think of ways to attract more money, to bring in more money? And then as I bring it in, use something like my SSI method, which is having a spending plan, a way to think about how you're going to spend some of the money, a savings plan, and an investing plan. So it really is about, to your words, rethinking the purpose of money. Money is a lot of things. Money is options. It gives you options. Money is not everything. It's not going to make you happy, right? I got money. I'm not always happy, right? It's not about money, that money doesn't make you happy, but it's more, it gives you options. And that's a big deal, right, in life. It is options, whether you get good health care or no health care, right, or bad health care. It gives you option if you want to travel. right? If you want to spend time with your family. I just came back from Florida just the other day. I went last Friday, came back Sunday because I have a friend who's in the hospital sick who may not make it. This is real, real talk, as they say. And if I didn't have the means, the financial means, I would not be able to go. But I was able to get up and go just like that. So money gives you options, right? And it made the difference. And this is the truth. She has cancer. If she doesn't make it, at least I feel good. And she was so happy. And she was like, oh, this is my best friend from New York and blah, 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 and this and that. It made a difference. So money makes a difference.
Sure.
I don't care what nobody say, right? So, but at the end of the day, to answer your question, it is about changing the money scripts, examining, taking a look at, and I encourage people to write down what are some of the scripts that we've heard about money. What do we think about money? How does money make us feel? Right? There was a time when I was much younger when I, unconsciously saw money. I never forget this. My son's mother, she passed away, but my son's mother said, when you get money, you're in a happy mood, you're up. But when you don't, you're not. And I was like, really? And I wasn't trying to hear it. I'll just say that at first. But then when I thought about it some time later, I said, she's absolutely right. So we got to be mindful of how money affects us, too, affects our mood. Money is a powerful thing because it's not the money, it's what we associate money with, what it means to us. So we need to start thinking about what money represents to us. It represents different things to different people, right? For some people, it represents security, right? For some people, it represents freedom. For some people, it represents travel. It represents, a whole bunch of things. But we need to have those conversations with ourselves and then with, people in our close circle. Money should not be taboo. It should not be something that we just keep secret. That's why I put out there, and I said I didn't put my exact numbers, but I said in one of my accounts, in my 401k account, that's tied to my work, I know it's down now because of all the stuff going on with the tariff war, but just a couple of weeks ago, I had almost $200,000 in one account. This is somebody who just did a lot of time in prison, and I got two other accounts. So my point is, if I had been thinking the same way, if my psychology was the same way as it was 20, 25, 30 years ago, then I probably wouldn't be investing. I'd be like, no, I'll just work this job and then I'll save. That's the traditional way of thinking. And what happens in that situation is this. So let me say this. We can't be faulted. Many of us cannot be faulted for not investing, not being more involved in focusing on our retirement and stuff. Many of us can't be faulted because they don't teach this in the school system. And so as a result, our parents didn't get it. We didn't get it. Now we have the internet, right? When we was growing up, remember, we didn't have no internet, but now we have it. So there's really no excuse. The information is out there. But I'll close this question with this, or that question with this. I remember early on in the pandemic, I tell this story a lot. I remember in the pandemic when it's in New York City, and I used to go grocery shop on Saturdays. My wife was scared. She wasn't even coming out the house. That's how bad it was in New York City. But anyway, so she stayed in. I would go grocery shopping. And when I would go grocery shopping, it was like a desert. Like nobody really was outside except for, when I used to go to the store, there was a long line all the way around the corner of people who I'm sure many of them worked hard all their lives. They were unemployed because of the pandemic. They was, let go. And so they had these food lines. They had, a church or religious organization that provided food, bags of food, free food for people who needed it. And I couldn't help but think, one, I was lucky, my job, I was able to keep my job. I worked from home because I worked at a law firm. I worked from home remotely for a year and a half. A year and a half. Most people didn't. That's a luxury. That's a luxury. But they company, they didn't fire anyone. We had to do work differently, right? I couldn't meet with clients because people, because COVID, but I was able to talk with them over the phone, do video conferences, stuff like that. My point is this. because I had savings in the form of investments, even if I had been fired, hypothetically, I had at that time about $60,000. It's not a whole lot, but it's something, right? Because I changed my money script and realized that money is not bad and that money is not for me to work for money, but money is meant to work for me, right? Because I'm thinking like an owner now. Yeah, I'm thinking like an owner. An owner thinks about growing assets, increasing cash flow. It's those type of terms. When you start thinking like that, when your vocabulary includes those type of words, you see money differently. You see the world differently, right? When I go to CVS, for example, I'm just using that because as an example because I own shares in CVS. I have a CVS right across the street from my house. I go there. In my mind, I'm not only a consumer when I go buy something. I'm an owner. I'm an owner, right? Literally, like I own shares. Same thing with I have an iPhone. I own Apple stock. I own Google stock, right? So I'm an owner. As they grow, I grow. My wealth grows. I think in terms of wealth, not income. That's why I said words matter. Psychology matters. So yeah, that's a long way of basically saying that we really need to get on top of this. You know, we need to be thinking about intergenerational wealth. We throw that term out there a lot, but it's like, what does that mean? How do we pass on wealth if we don't have it to begin with? We got to get it. We got to get it. We got to figure out how to get it. Other people are getting it, not just white folks, but black and brown folks too. But we have to get it. We have to get it. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Can I ask you another question?
Sure.
Okay. Considering all this financial stuff, you know, that's over the country and everything, and you did speak about having credit and managing it. Is it wise for us to go into debt during these times with so much uncertainty about, you know, the dollar and
right? Well, let me say this. Let me say this. That is a tricky thing, right? there's have you heard of the book Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So, Rich Dad Poor Dad, as you know, Robert Kiyosaki, and he talks about good debt and bad debt. First I want to address that and then talk about is this a good time, because he doesn't necessarily get into about timing. But in terms of good debt, the way he breaks it down is that it's debt that, whether it's a loan, whatever type of loan it is, or some type of debt, it could be credit card or whatever, but debt where you owe someone else, right, is good or can be good if it brings in income, some type of cash flow, right, where it essentially pays for itself, right? So if you borrow $1,000, then you should be the goal should be not to borrow it so you can buy something that's going to go down in value. You don't go buy clothes with $1,000 because it's not going to go up in value. As soon as you wear it, it loses. I mean, people might say it's cute, it's nice, or whatever like that, but you can't sell it for more than what you paid for. So you want to think in terms of cash flow. How if you spend $1,000, let's say to buy a vehicle, let's say hypothetical used car, and then you make that $1,000 back plus more, then that was good debt, right? But if the cash flow is going, it's all about cash flow. If the cash is flowing, I like to say you want the cash flow to be flowing to you. You don't want it to be flowing to a debtor, someone who you owe, right? You want to be owed, right? It's better to get a bond, right? Yeah, it's better to it's not that debt is bad. You want it to be working for you, not against you. That's the difference, right? So in terms of is this a good time, there is no right or wrong answer. It depends on, that's why I led with the good debt, bad debt first, because bad debt is when money is flowing from you, all right, with interest. With interest, because it's not free, right? When you borrow something, it's credit cards right now, the rates are like 20-something%. Unbelievable. That should be against the law. It really should be against the law, right, to charge somebody that type of interest, right? Can you talk, earlier we talked about compound interest. Compound interest works, it can work for or against you. If you are an owner, if you're an owner and you own, let's say, a house, a mortgage, or you own stocks or bonds or a business, then in theory, at least, you know, you're you have cash flow coming to you, right? So even though you might take out a loan for it, you have money coming in. But if you're just spending and taking out a loan, you're going to get deeper and deeper in debt. And instead of capital gains working for you as an investor, it's working against you as a person who's paying a debt. It's really working against you. So we want to be on the right side of debt. Now, if we have to invest, if we have to take on debt in terms of is this the right time, the question is, what is the debt going to be used for? That's what will determine if it's good or bad, in terms of what time. It has nothing to do with the time. That's like saying, is it a good time to invest now? Or that's not the question. It's actually, I will say, though, as crazy as it may sound, this is actually the best time to invest. The stock market's going down right now. If I don't have it right now because I'm expending money in different business pursuits. But if I had, $10, $20, $30,000 at my disposal, I would be buying more shares of stock because it's like right now, because prices are going. I wouldn't buy any ones. I would be very selective, but I would buy a whole bunch of them. Bunch of shares because companies like Apple, like Google, and some other ones, NVIDIA that deals with AI stocks and stuff like that, they are going to go back up. They're going to go back up. They're not way down, but they are down. But they're going. That means you can buy them at a discount. The idea, people forget that the whole thing of investing is buy low, sell high. But because a lot of us are not financially literate, we do the opposite. We buy high and sell low. We get scared and we sell it when it goes down instead of buying it when it's low and wait for it to go up. We got it backwards. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got this thing backwards. So now is the time to actually be buying. But I wouldn't take on debt to buy because that's gambling, right? Because you got to pay that debt back. So it's not about, again, whether or not now is a good time to take on debt. The question is, any time can be a time to take on debt, just like any time can be the time to invest. They're two different things. People should always be investing, right? You shouldn't always be taking on debt.
Okay.
So that's my feedback.
That is good. Thank you.
Yes, you are welcome. You're so welcome.
I have one question for you, and I don't mean to hold you here because I know you're tired. I'm sorry, Joseph.
I'm gonna stay to 10:15.
All right. Contentment with just having it enough, is that a detriment to a person, or should they always be striving to get more?
Wait, what was the first part of the question, though?
Contentment with just having enough, just having enough. Is that a detriment to a person, way of thinking?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. It's funny you said that because as a young lady, she's probably like 16 years old in the class the workshop I was doing in the South Bronx the other day, and she didn't use that word contentment. But she's like, "What if people don't, I don't want all that. Just, you know what I'm saying?" Like she was talking like that, and I use the word contentment. I said, yeah, some people are content, or they tell themselves that they are content. Just like people will say, I'm in my comfort zone. If you're struggling, you ain't got no food on the table, where's the comfort? There's no comfort. You know what I'm saying? So we talk about comfort zone. It's more about what is familiar to us. Words are powerful. It might be a familiar zone, but it's not a comfort zone, right? So that, yes, that's a long way of saying that I believe that contentment is a detriment. right? I'm not saying everyone should pursue wealth or make a whole lot of money, but we should not be struggling. We should at least have emergency fund money, 3 to 6 months worth of savings, right? And we need to stop and think about and do an inventory. If we have credit cards or debit, cards, then we could easily take a look at our statements, whether it's online or in paper, and take like 2 months worth and go line by line and look at some of the expenditures, how we spent our money. And some of us would be like, man, why did I buy that? I ain't even need that stuff, right? All this other stuff that we just bought. Some of the things we bought it was emotional spending. We do a lot of that. I mean, people in general, right? They have a term. They have a term called retail therapy. Retail therapy, which means instead of going to see a therapist or a professional to talk through your problems, we spend to work through our issues, our emotions, or we eat. Think about it. It's real talk. It's human stuff. This ain't no, esoteric. Ain't nothing fancy about all this. We go shopping or we buy food and other stuff. Sometimes it's drugs, alcohol, if you want to be honest, right? To mask or cover up some emotional things that we're dealing with. So money is deep, right? We got to understand it so that it doesn't control us to the point where we're working, busting our behind, so to speak, and then giving it back to somebody else, making somebody else richer. Anytime we're buying stuff, there's that cash flow, that transaction or those transactions is you can say a transaction of wealth going from one side, to another, right? Every time we buy, let's say, an iPhone, I'm just using that for example, right? I have an Apple iPhone. I don't buy them every year because I don't need a new phone every year, right? But some people do. And those people who do, I'm not trying to be funny, and they buy all this Apple stuff, they're making me richer. They're making me and anybody else who owns shares richer. The same thing with Nike. The same thing with Netflix. I own shares in Netflix. I watch it, but I also own shares. Shares was almost at $1,000 a share, Netflix. I bought it at I think 600-700. I'm making good money. You see what I'm saying? So we need to think like an owner. We should begin investing in stuff that we already buy. If we buy something over and over again, then apparently we like it, right? Whatever it is. And if you like it that much to buy it, you might as well own it. That's how I look at it, right? It's really that simple. Yeah, so that's how I look at this stuff. So again, contentment I think is a bad thing, but that's just me. Because most people the people who are content, a lot of people we're talking about, they're not rich. They're not rich, right? There are people who just making it struggle. So what are you content with? That's my opinion. Some people may disagree with that, and that's fine. It's not that you want to just keep accumulating stuff, but I like to travel a lot. Travel costs money, right? Travel is expensive. Staying in hotels, flights, and all, eating out, all this other stuff. But that's what I enjoy doing. So instead of buying a whole bunch of fancy or name brand clothes like I used to growing up, I still have nice stuff, but I spend it on traveling and taking pictures and videos and capturing those moments. Those things are priceless to me, especially after having done time. You can't get those moments back. So so it's like I'm collecting moments and memories. That's real talk. So that's how I spend my money. So my investments provide. We got to start thinking of investing and investments as a way to provide for the lifestyle we want. It's not doing it just to be saying, "Oh, I got money." That's not what this is about. This is about lifestyle, how we want to live. We have a choice. If someone who's content is going to keep they're going to spend most of their money, they're going to save very little, and invest even less, right? And as a result, they can stay in their so-called contentment or comfort zone. I want to do other stuff with mine. So it's about what we value, what's important to us, not just as a people, but individually. Like, think about what is important to us. So different things are important to different things, and that will determine, to what degree a person might be content. Or because I see it as this, I'll just say this: I see when I think of contentment, I think of people who settle. That's what I think, right? We're settling for less. I think a lot of us settle for less. We settle for less in our relationships. I'm gonna keep it real, right? And we settle for less in our lives. We could have more. We could do more. We could be more, right? For example, this is real talk, right? This is real talk. And I use those terms deliberately because I've read them. It's like a framework: be, do, have. And we've been in this country. We've been taught to do certain things, to go to school, get a job, whatever this that, so we can have a job, so we can have an apartment, so we can, just that type of stuff. We can have stuff. But what we're not taught is how to be, what type of person we should be, right? And we're not taught what type of person we need to be in order to do and have the things we want, right? So I guess what I'm getting at is one of the things I realized is that I was doing a lot of stuff and not having the results, not getting the results that I wanted from my business. And I realized, I'm being very transparent, I realized part of it is because I neglected the being part. I had to stop and think, because I watched this video on YouTube, black guy, Myron Golden, who I like a lot, and he reminded me of the be, do, have framework, right? Meaning if you can apply this in your life. And I said, wow, I've been doing this, doing that to get my business working so that I can have this impact, a certain type of impact, and so I can have a certain lifestyle for myself as well. Help other people have a certain lifestyle and also have a lifestyle. It's all about the law of correspondence. You put good energy out there, you put value out, it comes back. That's the way life works. You put very little value out, you get very little back, right? So, but I was focused on the doing and having. I was not focused on who I needed to become. And what I realized is I needed to become much more disciplined, much more focused, much more intentional, like I used to be, ironically, when I was incarcerated. I was more focused. It wasn't too many distractions. It wasn't no internet, wasn't all this stuff. And now, of course, I don't want to be in no goddamn jail cell. But my point is, it dawned on me. I said, wow, I wrote a book while I was in there. Nobody has written a book like my book about entrepreneurship for people who did time, personal finance for people who did time or their loved ones. No one has done it. I've created, not saying no one can do it, because people can do it, but I've created a lane for myself. I've created opportunity where there seemed to be no opportunity. You see what I'm saying? In other words, in prison, it's like, where's the opportunity in prison? The opportunity is between our ears. It's our brain. That's what I'm saying. It's like paying attention.
Right.
And where one person sees or people see problems, I look for opportunities. Anytime there's a problem, that means there's a need that can be addressed, and people will pay to have the need addressed. It's really that simple. That's the crux of business. That's the core of business, right? As you look around yourself, you look in your own life, other people, and you see where people complaining or how things can be better or improved, therein lies the possibility of a business opportunity. And you fulfill people's needs. You treat people right, treat them decent. You're going to be profitable. You're going to make money. So, yeah, anyway, that's a long way to talk about the whole contentment piece. I think that it does us disservice, and that we really instead need to be thinking about having impact in the world, not just working for someone else, getting somebody else richer, and then we die broke. That don't even make sense to me. We work 30, 40 years and we die broke. Meanwhile, we done got some companies that we work for rich. That makes no sense. Think about it. It makes no sense at all. But we don't know any better. I'm not saying that to make anybody feel bad. We don't know better. We need to get better at this stuff. So I'll leave off with that.
All right. Well, thank you, Joseph Robinson. Again, everyone, Joseph Robinson, author of Think Outside the Cell, and his new book, The New SSI Method. So thank you, Joseph Robinson, for coming and being on the show tonight, Talk Real Solutions show. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you. I'll
and I'm
send
going to honor your wishes. Get some rest.
I will. I appreciate it. All right. All right.
All right. Thank
take
you.
care. Thanks for the questions. All right. Take care. All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Q&A session is over. All participants are unmuted.
All right, everyone, your line is open. And Tyrone, you could go ahead and take it down off of YouTube.